October 29th, 2025. We are in the 4th year and on the 248th day of the war in Ukraine. A warm welcome. I greet you to the Daily Situation Report. Above all, I welcome the channel members who received 2 new emojis for the chat today. Feel free to spam the whole section. In today's report, we'll look at the emergency at the Belgorod Reservoir, Russia's shift of focus to Pokrovsk, the massive upgrade of air defenses, a drone strike on a refinery, hits on an oil depot, and much more. So sit back, subscribe, and let's get started. In the Belgorod region, a state of emergency was declared after damage to the bottom outlet and one of the 2 sluice gates of the reservoir. The water level fell by about 1 meter. The authorities are trying to continue blocking the river to prevent further flooding downstream and to stabilize the reservoir. Flooding occurred along the axis of the Chebekino diversion dam as a result of the dam breach. According to reports, Russian equipment is partially underwater on the Russian side. Logistics have been significantly disrupted and several positions have been affected. However, a reliable assessment of the situation is ongoing. Putin stated that Russia had tested the nuclear-powered underwater torpedo Poseidon and called it a great success. He claimed that its explosive power even significantly exceeds that of the intercontinental missile Sarmat. There is no comparable system in the world and no way to defend against it. Of course, there are no independent confirmations for its range, performance data, or testing history. The saber-rattling rhetoric from Moscow has noticeably increased recently and is clearly aimed at deterrence and domestic mobilization. What they're trying to say is, even if you see at the front that we're taking losses, things are going well. By now, it's been 1,344 days. We are still a military power that also has the weapons to defend ourselves. By the way, with the Poseidon, they hope to be able to flood coastal cities by detonating a nuclear warhead underwater just before reaching them. Solovyov once talked about being able to flood all of Great Britain with it, which is of course nonsense. Whether it's the Poseidon, which is supposedly working well, or the Sarmat intercontinental missile, which according to him is being surpassed, they have one thing in common. We don't actually know if they work, and even if they do, how many of them they have. There's a funny story about that too. Putin made this announcement in 2023. The first heavy weapons of the Sarmat system entered combat service in the same year. 2 years later, or a few hours ago, it was said that Sarmat would soon enter combat service. Same as with the Orichnik. He said the same thing, and it's been in development for years. It has been worked on at the drawing board for years, until it finally came to the first test. After that, he said a few months later that the whole thing would only happen now. The changing timeframes indicate delays in production, testing, and troop deployment. The pattern matches other Russian major projects where demonstrations and political messages overtake technical hurdles, and I strongly assume that this will be the case with Poseidon as well. China is increasingly restricting the export of drone components to Ukraine. According to Lomachowski, co-founder of the IREN network, Beijing is now also blocking detours through allied countries, such as the Baltic states and Poland, because they assume that it will end up in Ukraine anyway. The goal is to prevent Chinese electronic components from reaching the Ukrainian defense industry. The background is the importance of drones as a key weapon. Ukraine uses them against command posts, logistics hubs, and critical energy infrastructure. China's controls make it harder to procure, scale, and maintain Ukrainian drone systems, increasing pressure on their supply chains and non-Chinese suppliers. After the Russians were defeated in the battle near Dnipropetrovsk, partially retreated or were encircled, this section can, for now, be considered lost. So there is a change in the battle plan on the Russian side. Pokrovsk is now supposed to have the highest priority again and must definitely be captured by the Russians. They have already secured access to the city from the south. They are shortening the gap between the 2 churches. After escaping the city's encirclement, they are reaching the main street via the Green District. From the north, they are trying to drive a wedge between the well-fortified town of Belgorod and Pokrovsk in order to separate these two important strongholds and cut off their supply. So the situation remains extremely tense in this sector. But as always, I will keep you updated as long as you subscribe to the channel and keep me going as well. Which targets are actually especially worthwhile for the Kremlin to protect? Is it the so-called liberated areas? Or is it the buffer zones that they can't expand any further? Is it the entire front line where many soldiers and systems are stationed? Or is it the countless ammunition depots and refineries that have the highest priority? Or is it Moscow? Take a guess. Of course, it's Moscow. Furthermore, Ukraine is increasingly relying on land-based long-range drones, regularly striking targets deep within Russian territory. Oil refineries are particularly often targeted. The effects are measurable. The economy is weakening. For the first time since the invasion began, arms production is stagnating. Bottlenecks in fuel supplies and also in fuel production or in preliminary products are affecting other industries and are especially noticeable at the front. But more attention is focused on Moscow. During the night leading into Monday, drone strikes followed by explosions were reported in several districts. Maybe you still remember the situation reports from the beginning of the week. In response, Russia is strengthening its air defenses around the capital. According to research by the War Zone, they set up a ring of air defenses using S-300 and S-400 systems. The front hasn't experienced this in a long time. Also, many flat-roof buildings have extra defense on their roofs. S-11 also includes defense towers that resemble a simplified version of the historical flak towers. A mapping by journalist Mark Krutow shows numerous fixed and mobile positions, including gate systems, as well as new and uncovered positions around Moscow. Because in the country's most politically important city, where a large part of the Russian population lives, no one is supposed to see drones. The war and the suffering at the front are supposed to be hidden so that there won't be any insurgents. To make it easier to hide the war, of course, a second important location has also been reinforced with air defenses. Which one is it this time? Which section of the front could it be? Of course, it's none of them, because it's about the president's summer residence at Lake Valdai, which has also been upgraded. At least 13 defense towers, an S-400 complex, and the Ross C-1 radar, specialized in small drones, are supposed to secure the area. Some generals at the front can only look on with envy. The concentration of modern systems on political power centers points to a changed threat perception among the Russian leadership. Of course, even a blind man can see the downside. Moscow and government residences are being reinforced, but industrial facilities, energy infrastructure, and the front remain vulnerable. For Ukraine, this means that strategically important targets in the Russian hinterland remain accessible despite the expansion of air defenses. This is exactly where the current drone campaigns aim to have an impact, affecting both military logistics and the economy equally. Ongoing budget problems in Russia are now also evident in the bonuses for new recruits. Some regions are cutting payouts sharply, in some cases by 80%. In Saratov, the governor signed a decree on Monday that reduces the one-time bonus for volunteers from 2.2 million rubles to 400,000 rubles. The measure signals financial pressure on regional budgets and weakens the incentive for new contracts. And anyone who didn't sign for 2.2 million definitely won't do it for 400,000. Ukrainian drones have hit the Novopeskoi refinery. Large fires can be seen in the pictures. Initial signs show damage to processing facilities and tank areas. Short-term interruptions in regional fuel logistics are possible. A precise damage assessment and information on the duration of the restrictions are still pending. Yesterday, I reported the sabotage. Today, there's already another incident. The partisan group Artesh attacked railway infrastructure in occupied Tokmak, southern Ukraine. According to the group, the damage disrupts the schedule of military transports and makes it harder for Russian troops to maneuver. The interventions target transfer points, switches, and signaling technology, increasing the effort required for repairs and security measures. For military logistics, this means delays, detours, less flexibility, and above all, poor supply at the front. The partisan activities have been happening more frequently and more openly for about 2.5 weeks now. Ukrainian forces struck an oil depot near Russian-held Simferopol in Crimea. The facility is considered a central hub for fuel supply and fuel handling in the occupied territory, and also supplies units of the Russian army. Fires and disruptions to logistics are being reported from the area. The strike targets the supply, mobility, and operational readiness of the occupying forces. North Korea and Russia are building their first joint road bridge. The goal is to create a faster logistical link and strengthen military and economic ties. Front Intelligence Insight has analyzed satellite images and project documents. According to this, work is progressing on both riverbanks. Access roads, riverbank defenses, and checkpoints are expanding here. A phased commissioning will soon be possible. The bridge complements the existing railway connection, which already exists anyway. It enables weather-independent truck traffic with higher frequency and shortens turnaround times. Thanks again for listening. Please subscribe, like, comment, and see you at the next Situation Report.